Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we've been doing some work on our 1968 Playmore, and a few weeks ago we added an air conditioner to the area underneath the bed, and this week I need to add an additional outlet for that, and I also need to switch our inlet from a 15 amp connection to a 30 amp connection to accommodate the air conditioner. Now I also thought I would take the opportunity to talk about some of the questions that we get asked a lot about camper electrical systems, and also sort of explain the design of the system that we built for this particular camper. But before I do any of that, I need to be very, very clear that I am not an electrician. I have no training in this. I don't know what I'm talking about. You should not do anything that you see me do because I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Perhaps you will learn something from this video that you can then talk to a licensed electrician about for your camper and have it done safely and correctly. If you happen to be a professional electrician and you see me doing something stupid, please let me know in the comments so that I can correct it before I set fire to my camper or injure someone. Okay, that's good. So one other thing I want to say is that this video is not going to be me telling every aspect about how to design an electrical system for your camper. If you want a really good few videos that really explain how to do camper electrical wiring, whatnot, you should check out Larry's videos at Mobile Tech. He's got, I think it's a 3-part playlist that is really informative about this. I recommend checking that out. I'll put the links in the description to the video. Okay, so let me explain something right off the bat. In most campers, you're going to have two systems. You're going to have a 110 volt system, or sometimes it'll be called 115, 120. That just has to do with how you want to measure what that is. It's 120 coming in off the line, but by the time it gets to your appliances, it might be down to 110. Whatever you want to call it, I think I usually call it 110. So you've got a 110 volt system and you've got a 12 volt system. 110 is just like in your household. It's like the outlets you plug your coffee maker into, the outlets you plug your lamps into, all that stuff. 12 volt is like what's in your car. So why do we have these two systems? Well, sometimes we run off of a battery, much like a car battery, which is a 12 volt battery. But sometimes we plug in to a pedestal at a campground or house or wherever, and that's 110 volts. Now the thing is, some things in your camper will be powered by 110 and some will be powered by 12 volt. Usually, doesn't have to be this way. Your lights, maybe your fan, maybe your fridge, USB chargers. I don't know, depends on how fancy your camper is. But your 110 is usually going to be for things like the microwave or a television. If you want to include all these things in your camper, you're probably going to have these two different systems. Now, the one other thing that's going to be on your 110 is a power converter. Now, this power converter, what does that do? Well, that is what makes your 12 volt system. Let me explain. So that power converter that you've got wired in is actually just plugged into an outlet. And this outlet is part of your 110 system. Like on our camper, I have two breakers. One breaker goes to my other standard 110 outlet, and the other breaker goes to the 110 outlet that's down underneath everything that my power converter box plugs into. That power converter box then plugs into the 12 volt system and takes the 110 volt from here and converts it into 12 volt so that it can be used for all those other 12 volt things like the fan, like the lights, etc., etc. So at a bare minimum, most campers will have a setup like that. Usually these small campers are not going to get too complicated, but if you get a great big, 30-foot long fifth wheel, your electrical system is going to become much more involved. I don't have solar panels on this, but solar panels typically will plug into your 12 volt system. And if you have a battery, which I don't have a battery on this one because I always manage to find some power to plug into. But if you have a 12 volt battery that is on this same 12 volt system, and so those all work back in to power this stuff. Now if you want to power your 110 off of 12 volt, then you will need an inverter, which will take this 12 volt power that's either coming from your solar panels or stored in your battery, and it will invert that into 110 power that can then power all these other things in theory. Since I don't have solar panels or a battery, my system's very simple. I plug into 110, my 110 runs the power converter, which supplies the power to all my 12 volt accessories. Super easy. So the other thing I said I needed to do is to swap from my 15 amp inlet to a 30 amp inlet. You might be asking yourself, what? So when you go to your campground, you pull up and you get your campsite and you open your pedestal, you're going to find most of them that I've ever been to will have one like this. This is usually either 15 amp or 20 amp. If it's 20 amp, it'll have a little additional T off of here. So you'll have one of these, and this is what I've been running on. Plug a normal heavy-duty extension cord into this, and the other end goes into the back, and away we go. Why are we upgrading it? Well, we've got an air conditioner on board now. There's a potential with my 12 volt side and my air conditioner running at the same time that I could be drawing too much power for a 15 or 20 amp circuit and blow the breaker. So we're going to convert it to a 30 amp inlet. So I've got more power coming in, split between those two circuits, my 12 volt running off the power converter, and then the 110 running the air conditioner and anything else that I would plug into there. I shouldn't have any problem throwing breakers. On a pedestal, you'll also have your 30 amp connector, which is pretty standard. You will also, at some campgrounds, find a 50 amp connector, which is really, you would never have a small camper like this plugged into 50 amp. This is, there's no way you need that much power here. 50 amp is usually for your big, 30-foot long fifth wheels that have multiple air conditioners and microwaves and full-size residential refrigerators and big screen TVs and maybe a hot tub or Cuisinart, blender, food processor, dishwasher, those people. Okay, all of that being said, let's get in there and start doing some work. What I have to do is really pretty simple. It always sounds simpler than it winds up being, so let's see what happens. Okay, so I think I'm going to start back here with putting in a new outlet because that sounds easier to do. So first, I'm going to have to take the mattress and the bed slats out so that I can sit back there and work on it. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to run a cord off of there, run it back down and under and along there, under there, back along there, and then I'm going to put a box right about there. Actually, I'm not going to run all the way back around there. I'm just going to run straight down there because when I put the drawer in, I realized I actually have plenty of space behind it to avoid making contact with that cable, so it'll be fine to do that. So we'll just go straight down, under there, and over to there. So one thing I should say before doing anything is, of course, to make sure the power's off, which I've gone back to my breaker and made sure those are shut off. To be extra doubly certain, and because we're in a camper and we can do things like this, I've also made sure that my power cord is not connected. So I'm going to be using 12-2 wiring for this. I've seen some debate in online forums about whether you should be using solid wire in a camper or whether you should only be using stranded. The idea behind only using stranded is because over time vibration can weaken the copper and cause it to break. I don't entirely buy into that theory. I know some people from a marine background only do stranded, but campers are different than boats. These campers were built originally with solid copper wire. At least everyone I've taken apart has been. And when you look in new contemporary RVs, they have solid core copper wire as well. I believe this is the RIA, or the RV industry. I don't know what it is, but I believe that's the industry standard. That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I know. I'm using 12-2, which is a little heavier than what you often use in your house just for running outlets and lights and things like that. You can use a 14-2 for that. So since this will become, instead of the end run outlet, this will be a middle outlet, I'm going to have to use a little bit of a jumper ground wire or a pigtail ground wire on the ground, but the black and white will attach directly to this outlet and run from there. So it's very simple, basic, exactly how you do it in your house. Not much to it. Famous last words. There we go. And cut this back a bit so we get our cables out here where we can work with them. I should get more. Okay. So I'm just going to cut out of another piece of this. Not a jumper. Why do I keep calling it that? Pigtail. Oh, that's not good enough. Why did I do that? Make it long so you have enough. There. This is fun and exciting, y'all. Let me goes around. Okay, so I'm using these little they're called, what are they called? Ensure. They're these little connectors. You just push them in all the way and they grab. A little easier to use than wire nuts. I think they make for a nicer connection, so that's what I'm using. And basically, we just stick the ends of all of our grounds into there, and we're good to go. Okay. Piece of cake. They're really hard to pull out once they're in there, so this guy up. There we go. Well, the idea is I just screw it back into the electrical box now that I've made all my connections, but I must need someone on the other side. Anyway, imagine that I've just screwed this back in. That's how that works. Okay, so with this extra wire run, I'm going to use some of these little hold down doodads. I'm going to just tack it to that back wall and run it down under there. Okay, so then we'll be putting an electrical box right here. So I just attached it to a little piece of wood. Okay, I do wish I would have left myself more wire to work with down here, but we're going to put this GFCI outlet down here. I'm going to orient it so that when I plug this in, the plug is going to go this direction rather than that direction. Not for any real reason, but that's what I'm going to do. Now the real question is, will it work? Will the camper burn down? Let's find out. Okay, breakers are off. I'm plugged in. Fire extinguisher in hand. Let's see if anything blows. Don't smell any smoke. See if the air conditioner works. Okay, something didn't work. There we go. It works! Okay, so now that I know I've got my outlet in and I'm sure that it works, I can go ahead and swap out this plug, knowing that I haven't screwed anything up here that would cause my other power not to work. So if you're making changes, make small changes at a time and verify that that stuff works before just changing the whole system up. There we go. Now this new plug's a little bit larger than the old one, so it's going to require a much larger hole, but I'm just going to take a hole saw and cut right through there, which is always a little scary. Okay, so I've added some little blocks in there just to have something to catch the drill bit. So I'll be upgrading the connection from the outlet to the breaker box from 12.2 is what I had used there. But I'm going to upgrade now to 10 gauge, what was it, THHN, the kind of stuff you normally run through conduit. So let me show you how the inlet works. Okay, so our inlet box has these little holes on the back of it and little screws around the outside of it. So all you have to do to install the wires in this little thing is you loosen up one of those little terminals on the side. You take your wire, you stick it down in that hole, tighten that back down, and as you tighten it up, you will find that it gets nice and tight in there where it won't come out. Really neat, really easy. So what I'm going to do on this is I'm just going to attach all my wires to it, and then I'm going to feed them back through that hole and go onto my breaker box. Okay, there we have it. And honestly, I only need probably this much wire, but... Okay, so our camper has this mesa pattern to the siding. I'm a little concerned that screwing this down on this seal is not going to be enough to seal on the top and bottom here. So I'm just going to add some more butyl tape around the outside to make sure that it does seal. And now they also suggested pre-drilling these holes, but it's going to be real hard to drill those and then get everything lined up just right. And I think our screws will go through that metal and screw it down just fine. One thing I see a lot of people do incorrectly in a camper is you need to wire these panels in your campers up like a sub panel. This is not a, I don't know what they call it, primary breaker panel like what's in your house. This is like if you were adding an additional panel in a garage or a utility room or something like that. So you need to have a separate ground bus bar that all your ground wires attach to. If you attach your ground wires to your neutral bus like you would in a primary panel, you will throw a GFCI outlet if you plug into it, and potentially it can be kind of dangerous because you don't have proper grounding in there. You always have to have an additional ground bus bar in these, which I do already. Okay, so all I got to do is pull this guy out and then run my new wires to where those came out of. Got our hot wire, and then our neutral, and then our ground wire for this circuit. Okay, that guy's out. So the reason why you kind of want to secure your cords as you're doing this is that you want them to be the proper length in your box. You don't really want too much, you don't want too little. If you bend any wires out of place, you want them in stranded, you want them kind of back together so they're not missing. Okay, let me just tighten this down. Now we're going to do the same for the white. Run up in there, a little bend so we can hook it up here into our bus bar. Okay, now we're doing our ground bus. Got everything where it's supposed to be. Put our little clamp back together here to keep those from wiggling. Got zip ties on there to kind of keep everything together and keep that from moving about too much and sort of help protect it a little bit. I went ahead and checked all my connections, made sure they're all nice and tight in there. Double checked our cords are all going to where they're supposed to be. So we'll put our panel cover back on. So I don't have a 30 amp outlet on my house, so I'll be using this 30 amp to 15 amp adapter cable. Probably get a 30 amp locking to 30 amp travel trailer actual cord, and then I'll use my other little adapter that I've got on the end of that. But this will suffice for testing this out. Listen for any loud pops or smell of smoke. Still lit up there, didn't trip a breaker. Okay, so the real moment of truth is flipping this breaker here. So once again, fire extinguisher standing by. Tilt this down a little bit. See if we get some light. I think it works. It's nice when things work out. So there you have it, folks. We've upgraded our wiring. We've added another outlet. We've got our 30 amp inlet. The one thing I have left to do is a little bit of plumbing work. That'll be in a future video. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and leave me a comment and let me know what specific questions you have about trailer electrical that maybe I can answer in a future video. And of course, let me reiterate, I am not a professional. I'm not a licensed electrician. Don't listen to me on anything really, electrical or life advice, anything like that. Always be careful, always be safe, make sure the power's off, make sure the cord's unplugged, and we'll see you in the next video.